You know, it's really neat when you can like feel the warmth of the sun that was touching and warming these walls and the floor as you're walking through the neighborhood. You can feel it just rising above your feet. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the warmth of my character and knowing a little bit more about me, not from my typical way of expanding my self-awareness, but the realization of the connections that are being made between me and essential typing that comes from the MBTI. In particular, it's believed that I am an ENFJ. Oh, whoops. ENFP for show, okay? Wrong type there. And I found a relation between a video that I watched and some other stuff that just happened to come up. And while it's not very accurate in many ways, like for example, it says like one of the things that I care about most is money. As far as I know, that's not true. And you know, I'm very self-obsessed in a way that I want other people to praise me, or I want their attention. I want them to love me. Everybody wants people to love them, but I don't know. I feel like my personal life experience has very much steered me in a way where I'm not as narcissistic as I could be because I chose the opposite pathway of all the things that essentially were brought into my experience very forcefully. So all those things that were imposed upon me, I'm like, I don't like that, so I'm going to go do something else. And significance within the eyes of others, I really don't give a shit about. I really don't. Money, materials, I don't give a shit about. I do not. But purpose, my friends, yes, I do. And yes, it is in alignment with the message of what an ENFP is, that I'm a visionary and I like to share my message and I am a starter. I like to start things and give it some momentum, but then it does fizzle out eventually or shortly after. So I have to be a little bit cautious about that. And that really does make sense because I went through a huge period of my life in 2018 where I was picking up something for 3 to 6 weeks and I was just going, wow. I even picked up multiple languages like Japanese and Chinese, and I was just learning at a massive rate. Those did end up getting dropped off because I had to prioritize other things and my health went down. I became homeless. And just like my phone broke and I wasn't able to communicate with the people that I needed to, and just a lot of shit really. But I'm still open to making more connections and learning more languages and talking to more people, but it's got to be within the right timing. So one really big thing that was quite profound to me that came across my attention is I don't know what it's called, the something and the vice, the virtue and the vice, what is essentially this good, courageous part of this person's character or their aspect of who they are by being this label of MBTI, ENFP in particular, and the vice is just like, you know, the weakness and the things that they don't happen to do well at. Mine is apparently, if I am an ENFP, the virtue would be charity and the vice would be depravity, which actually makes a little bit of sense given my personal experiences. But realistically speaking, so I'm really good at giving and I like to give gifts and I really want to help people in that capacity. And a lot of the way that I share these gifts is through the actual message that I share, some of the values and the character that I have, trying to help people improve what actually matters, which is their soul. And the things that are connected and rooted in their integrity and actually being a better person as a whole, because that's going to get them the results that they're looking for to be able to acquire all the other things, right? You're a better person, you get better things. Period. So that's really what I'm trying to give out. And if I can help anybody just make their life a little bit better to get through the suffering just a little bit easier, then I think that's really part of the goal. So in that sense, the virtue and the charity is great. But I also want to find a way to inspire and get that message out in an appropriate manner where, yes, I can make money, and NFTs would be a great way to do that, just like Gary Vee is doing with V Friends, he is sharing particular values that he wants to live on beyond his lifetime. And I think I can make a successful project like that, given the right resources, resourcefulness, the right thought, creativity, and wisdom applied. I think I can do that. It's a good idea. So, another thing is the depravity. I'm not exactly going after people like a mafia boss and saying, give me my money, where's my money at? Okay, break his legs, Tony. You know, like, not exactly my style of thinking. I mean, when I was younger, when I was a kid, I would write up, in elementary school, I would write up actual agreements to get people to agree to, right? They get people to agree to so that we could come to an agreement. If they owed me a debt, then they would pay me back the debt. If they didn't pay me back the debt, they owed me like $1 each day that they didn't pay me back the debt. So it would add up. It was pretty smart. I wouldn't say everybody followed through on it, but hey man, you got that repertoire, you got that piece of paper, you're good, right? So the depravity aspect means basically you want to take. It's kind of like a scarcity sort of thing. Like you are deprived of that which you feel that you need, so you have to take and take more. You lack the resources or the resourcefulness in that capacity. And a lot of what inspires this depravity within somebody is if nobody's actually giving to you, and you find that nobody really cares, and they refuse to help you, and nobody's really charitable to you yourself, then you're going to find all the reason to not give a fuck about caring about other people. Therefore, you're just going to take and take and take, and you get into this cycle of, yeah, why should I even try? Like, that is how I feel. But it also has to do with my inner child and the previous experiences and traumas I've had to deal with in my lifetime, right? Which makes it really interesting, because I do feel that way similarly to today. All I've been given is a bunch of shit. Like, nobody ever dishes me out anything good, it seems like, for the most part. No doubt, I have been helped. I have been grateful. But I need help in ways that will actually meet my needs. Like, give me some sort of momentum and some sort of reactive reflection energetically so that I can keep going and actually feel like what I'm doing actually matters. Give me that, and maybe I can put some steam in my engine here. But as far as it goes, I keep getting a bunch of shit, and I don't feel all the gratitude and all the love that I feel that I need to go like, doo, 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 doo. It's like, choo, and more than choo. So that sort of conditional love doesn't make me feel very great, right? So depravity. I have had the experience when somebody doesn't follow through with their commitment and what we agreed on, that I take that shit and I take it back because they were supposed to be integral, and then they communicate through somebody else rather than themselves after, you know, having gone through a conversation where we're no longer contacting each other. We're basically blocked, right? And we've separated, we've parted ways, but you communicate through somebody else. Give me, you know, my stuff. And it wasn't a part of your stuff that was entirely yours when it was actually a part of mine, because we agreed as for how we were going to manage that transaction. That pissed me off because they didn't consider me. So they had a moral obligation and responsibility to consider me in the conversation. They communicated through somebody else when they were supposed to speak with me directly. They didn't care about my emotions in that. And therefore, with my obligation to communicate in a way that keeps us on the same page, them not wanting to be on the same page, and at least having some sense of a relationship rather than off-putting it to a second-hand person, it didn't make me feel good. So I immediately flipped that shit and said, I don't owe you shit, okay? And basically the attention, the energy was like, you need to contact me. But I didn't even include that. I actually erased the message and I changed it to just, I don't owe you shit, all right? So I did hold on to those things that should have been considered to be mine partly if they were responsible for the agreement that we were supposed to hold up. Depravity, what else? I know I'm a very charitable person. I know I constantly give. I make all these videos. Even if it were to be like in some sort of online video game, I would give, and only really make to give, you know? In my personal life, I feel like that is a huge thing. It could obviously use more, but the problem is I just don't have a whole great magnitude of relationships and people that I actually want to hang around because I become so responsible in a way that I don't exactly have other people who can be responsible with me. I feel like their character doesn't exactly align with the actions that I want to take. So I've shed so many layers of people who just don't belong because they have negative energy and their vibrations are really low and they can't even reciprocate the alignment of the path that we're all actually on. They don't understand me. So therefore I have no reason to partake in this life calling, this life pattern with them. So I do feel that I'm a very charitable person in many ways, but also I don't have to give shit, you know? Like, if I had more, it is true, if I had more, and if people didn't treat me like shit all the time and take and find ways to screw me over, I would be giving a whole lot. But right now I don't have a whole lot to give. Maybe it's a lack of abundance and the thought process behind that. Maybe it's, you know, that I happen to have misfortune after misfortune after misfortune. But actually, I'm viewing it as something that's helping me grow and helping develop my character. And it's part of my spiritual journey, so I'm seeing it as good. But maybe there is something in there about the abundance that's fascinating, right? But essentially, within this scope of things where there is this charity and depravity, I do think it is somewhat relevant within my recent experiences, but I think it can become more relevant the more I begin to experience like really connecting with a lot of people and making connections as the like number one connection point and uniting the world in many capacities. I think that'll be really fun. And then it's going to be an extremely charitable thing because I'm going to put people on who deserve it. So, there's another thing. I really don't care about money. That's the other odd thing that kind of didn't speak to me. I don't really know where else to go other than that main point. There is another unique and interesting point, which is to say, learning about other personality types, and one in particular, the INFJ. I think it's really interesting because for their virtue and their vice, their virtue is essentially integrity, which I can relate to on a completely different level because I've matured so much as a person and just as a being. Like, I've gone through so much shit and I've actually chosen to learn from it rather than run from it, that my virtue has become greatly integral. And if it weren't for that, then I would choose to be depraved immaturely rather than charitable, right? Like if I counted the number of people that fucked me over and continuously do so, and they don't have my best interests at heart, and I add that up and actually feel the pain within my body, and I'm like, fuck this world. It doesn't even give me permission to thrive. I would essentially be giving up and taking and being depraved, and I wouldn't give a fuck about advancing for the higher good of everybody. Like, if I were eliminated in this game, I feel the world would be less. You know, like I do feel some significance in my purpose, in my actual existence that is here to benefit the world. So if I'm not here, then who's going to do it? Kind of that question. And it's interesting because does it make me feel important? Yes, it does. Does it make me feel narcissistic? No, it doesn't. I'm just a person who is here and feels obligated to serve and to do something great. And I know I'm supposed to help people, and I just want to do that thing. Like, I just want to be me and do that thing, right? And that would make me feel fulfilled. That would make me feel great. So the INFJ, the virtue of integrity is really important. But then there's also the virtue, corruption is their vice. So it was fascinating because I watched this video, and given that their corruption is their vice, it's because the INFJ is basically like a mirror. They are a mirror to the external environment, and especially the people that are around them. If they're influenced by a bunch of negative people, a bunch of naysayers, a bunch of people who are manipulating them or abusing or taking advantage of them in many various ways, they're going to become more like those people, given that they're a mirror. That mirror can actually and eventually get cracked. It's something that will basically deteriorate their personality because they are prone to reflecting those that are of some sort of influence, whether that's a, authoritarian influence or a degrading influence. People of power, in power, around them, they end up kind of mirroring that, right? So if they're being treated poorly, then they're going to treat themselves poorly. They're going to lower their momentum, and they're gonna, beat themselves up and kick themselves and essentially not give themselves the care of the world that other people who are more optimistic and positive and upbeat and encouraging would. So if you can look at this corruption that can become rooted in them based on the external influences around them, it is the INFJ that is unique in a way that truly having some sort of support system that encourages them and sees the good within them, how they are, genuinely, that is going to enable them to become the greatest self that they are. Which to me is fascinating, because you take those cracks in the mirror and you actually reinforce the mirror. In the inverse, the opposite. You make that mirror stronger than it can ever be before. And that mirror now reflects all of the optimism of the entire upbeat community, right? And then that person becomes a driving factor for actually creating change in the world. And it said in this video, not only those examples of the cracks on the mirror and the reinforcement of the mirror, but the INFJ is actually the spear tip. They are the tip on the end of the spear, right? So it's the ENFPs who are basically going to be, the messenger and the advocate and the person who's going to be the visionary, which is supposedly me. And it is the INFJ that is actually going to create the change in the world, which is fascinating. They're going to plan those things and make it happen, which is good. So in these ways, they can actually support each other. If I'm a visionary and I am actually producing this message and I'm helping the world see it, it is the INFJ that is delivering it. Not specifically the message, but like the plan. They're carrying it out. And they're allowing the world to step into this wonderful world of creation. I find this fascinating. And I do see a lot of compatibility. Just given that, I've worked on myself so much that I've been able to self-manage the great things that would become my shortcomings. For example, this depravity. If it weren't for me being able to see my truth and being able to see that if I didn't continue to choose selflessness rather than selfishness, then I would be isolated, I would be alone. Well, fucking shit. I am feeling that way, but I don't choose the cynicism. I choose the optimism. I don't choose to beat myself up for it. I choose to live up for it. I choose to continue carrying on. I have the resiliency in my nature and my actual social conditioning to be like, hey, this is not the end, right? And I continue to choose to give. I continue to choose to make videos. I continue to choose to show up, to give my all, however best I can. Even if people aren't watching these videos, right now, it is February 6th of 2022, 5:47. No, 5:37. Ooh, I'm even having trouble reading the clock on my watch. Jeez. And I have 147 YouTube subscribers. And this will be the 213th video that comes out on my YouTube. There are hundreds of videos that have not been released. And it's from the struggle of like all that I continue to give, and I just, in some sense, I don't get the acknowledgement. And I also don't need it, you know? It's from all the hard work of, you know, putting together years of my own gifts, but feeling that I need to be ready to share it, not for the sake of perfectionism, but for the sake of there is some sort of momentum that is building here, and people are actually seeing the vision unfold, and they're actually contributing and being a part of it, and I'm actually feeling like I'm doing something great, and I'm actually contributing to the world, and they think so too, so that I continue to get my extroverted, reflective fuel that helps me react with them and be like, yes, let's keep going. I can make this vision happen because you believe in it too. So there is some sense of my reality being fueled by other people's reactions, the way that I would have previously defined it as I'm an entertainer. So I look to get a reaction from you to then take that energy and bounce it back to make you feel better. I just dropped the phone. Super! Okay. So with that, I do think it's really, 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 really cool that I personally have this interest or self-interest to help others. Same as the INFJ would, but we help fuel each other. If somebody's been going through shit and they've had a traumatic experience where they haven't been able to overcome the trauma of all these really shitty relationships and people that fucked them over, you know, I somehow feel like it is my responsibility, even though I've gone through a fuck ton of shitty relationships and everybody chooses to fuck me over, for the most part. If they literally mirror the other people around them, and if they've experienced crap rather than good, I feel it's my responsibility to go in and help that person, to change their life in some way. Now, don't get me wrong. They have to change their own life. So essentially, I'm choosing to change myself, and they're choosing to change themselves, and we're choosing to do it together. Now, if I can get that sort of agreement, that's a good deal right there. Because it would help me have the reactive energy to feel like I am doing something that is greater than my own. And I am continuously feeling productive and focused and energetically infused with this person, so that in some sense, we are one, producing this whole experience. Human experience, I wanted to say, but, you know, this greater thing that wouldn't be possible without each other's aid. Now, because they're a mirror, they're reflecting, you know, my energy, which is optimistic and positive, and because, you know, they are also a great visionary person, but essentially they've been betrayed so many times or hurt so many times. You know, being able to have me around to support them gives them the uplifting energy to believe that they can do it, which also, in that reactive nature, me just being there improves their consciousness. It improves their awareness. It improves everything about everything that they're actually being. And by having that energy and bouncing it back at me and giving me some sort of validation to say, look, you matter, like, that's going to keep me going, and it's going to keep me encouraging them too. Because I want to see the greater good in people, right? So it's for these reasons, just simply put, like, they're going to give me abundance just by being present in my life. Rather than this depravity, this BS that, you know, I wouldn't want to be in, but I tend to experience. I'm going to have much more charity because I'm going to be given the fuel that I need, right? Like, there was this quote from my iMovie that I made, the 2.5-year personal growth documentary, where I basically said, even while my cup is leaking, I still choose to pour out for you. Which basically means I have all this energy. I know what I'm meant to be doing here. And I'm trying to pursue that thing so that I can be able to give you all that I am. But I have these challenges with my health that is causing my energy to leak out. Yet even while it is leaking out, I still feel the obligation to give. And I choose to pour out for you while having trouble myself. So I'm taking care of more than myself. I'm taking care of the world, but I'm also struggling to take care of myself. So I also need the support of somebody to help take care of me. I think that's really fascinating. It's really fascinating that I still choose the charity side rather than the depravity side. Even since I made that movie in 2019, and it's now 2022. Give it a few more months, 4 more months, and it'd be the same time when I released that movie in June 4th of 2019. So I do think there's a lot of positive aspects and highlights that are very fascinating. And I do see all the reason within my life to go and help somebody, but I have to remember to see incompatibility. I have to remember to see that, this person, they can change and help themselves. They just need a little push. They need a little nudge. They need a little love. They need some support. They need somebody to actually genuinely care. Like to see into them and not necessarily show them a way, but give them all the love they need to be able to feel their way, right? Because their feeling senses have been so incapacitated and smothered by people just fucking harvesting all their shit and bringing it to them. Just fucking eat it and smell it, because, even just one circumstance of that just completely offset their life, and they feel so much shame or so much guilt over having felt so good at one point, because they realize the reality that people are shit. A lot of people are fucking shit. And for me to feel good, for me to genuinely feel that I'm with it, that I am okay to be innocent and all that I am, I'm closing myself off from that, because other people are going to judge me for being all that I am. So it's my job to open up this box and say, hey, peekaboo, I see you. I want to see all of you. And to say, it's okay to feel that way. It's totally valid to feel like you have been hurt and you have been betrayed. It's totally okay. But there is something I do want to acknowledge. That your innocence, that has become guilt. That your optimism, that has become shame. I want you to reignite that flame and carry forward. Because the world needs you and your truth. And it is okay to express that truth, however it may be, however you may feel. You don't have to hold yourself back from loving, because the world hasn't chosen to love you just yet. So let me be there for you. I feel like that is a great deal of what I need to do, personally speaking. And it's really interesting because in some capacity, this is very similar to an awareness documentation right now, what I'm doing. But since it's this type of view and I'm not choosing to go, woo, I'm gonna put it as the ENFP, INFJ type of connection here. So it's kind of my path. Hopefully this connection that we're witnessing and understanding here is that I am trying to see myself in a way to come into alignment with somebody that I don't really know, man. But for me to have support and for them to have support, I feel obligated to give that support, to show them the wake-up call that they have needed for so long, because it seems like their vitality has been dormant for so long. And similarly, mine's been out long enough. My flame has been low for long enough, and I just gotta light that fire, man. We gotta light the twos. So let's do that. All right, let's just give what we got to give. Likewise, you too. Forget all the personality types, forget the corruption and blah 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 blah. Just fucking do you. Just be the best person you can possibly be. I don't believe in all this crap of you know, this is how a person is, and put them in between the boundaries and watch them function like that. Like, it's interesting. I viewed my conversations, like my previous conversations and my previous interactions, and, you know, how I conducted myself with a new set of eyes, because I've learned something that could possibly enhance my perspective or my point of view, right? But it doesn't determine the outcome of my life. You know, like, there's so many good things that I could be doing opposite of what somebody else says. And essentially, that's how I've lived my life, and that's how I will continue to choose to live my life. Um, I just don't want to be in a place of isolation where nobody cares, and I never get to the ends of the earth that I care to do, and that isolation pains me so much that I have to end the trip short because the pain is too much to bear. I don't want to be in that place, and nobody should ever have to be in that place. And it's typically when other people don't see into you and feel you and truly deeply understand you. They don't know you, that you wouldn't have the connection or the support to be willing to carry forward like that, right? Like, my burden's already great enough on its own. I could use a little lightening. It'd be nice. And if I have to carry it all on my own, like, wouldn't you imagine, like, some of the pain on some people's shoulders, and nobody understanding them or relating to their pain, and they're just in pain and isolation. They're literally living in hell. And somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I see how you're doing. Like, I'm doing my best to understand you. I may not understand everything, but it's okay to feel how you feel right now." And not to push encouragement, like, you're going to get through this, but, you know, let me just be here for you. Like, wouldn't that change the fucking world for some people who are just going through the deepest shit, man? They don't know a way out. But to just sit in the fire with them for a minute. Yeah. So this, an example, is why so many people commit suicide. Because nobody finds a way to connect with them when they needed it. That's the real shame. So, be well, my friends. I love you. Keep taking care of the world. Okay? It'll be great.